Hi, my name is ZAMUDIO. This is my 50th attempt to film this, and this is going to be my approach on Edgar Allan Poe's Descent into the Maelstrom, the Oblong Box, and the Telltale Heart. In relation to Descent into the Maelstrom, I believe this story, if you were to put it on today's context, would change in two main ideas, basically. You know that there's this huge vortex that sucks things in with an incredible power, and it appears at a certain location on the map, in between two islands near the coasts of Norway. And you know that these two islands are completely unhabitable because the climate condition that the whirlpool pushes into these islands make them unsustainable for human life. I believe that is one thing that would change, because nowadays the anti-seismic architecture has made its way into the public eye, and it's actually a requirement in some countries in certain projects of housing and those things. So the two islands are a really key port for fishing, and I guess Norway would take advantage of it. Like, it would introduce the anti-seismic structures into the islands, and it would be much easier to live in those islands and fish near them. That would be one thing that I guess would change. And the other, I think, Edgar says that if you make one miscalculation while sailing near the whirlpool, then you get sucked in very easily. I believe that would change nowadays because of the novel technology. In order to perceive those kind of anomalies and respond to them while driving a ship, if you may say, are much more advanced than they were in the time of Edgar Allan Poe's life. So I guess the ships would easily at least have like a much easier way to avoid the whirlpool and avoid falling on it than in the story that the fisherman told to the narrator in Edgar Poe's story. In regards to the Telltale Heart, I started wondering what would the effects be if the main character wasn't a white person, or a Caucasian at least, but was a person of color, an Afro-American specifically. And this was like the example that had me thinking the most, because authorities through time, and not even authorities, like the white culture in general, has been very judgmental and critic in relation to the Afro-American community. Through time, you can see it. Afro-American community has suffered from a long path of racial discrimination, and I would guess that the impact on the two police officers that accompany the narrator would be different, in the sense that they would be like more critic and untrustworthy with the Afro-American man, because it's a man specifically. They wouldn't believe him easily on his lies, and thought the main character shows himself as a very calm person at the moment of trying to hide the fact that there is actually a corpse below his floor. And they would be far more aggressive when checking the house, not really as calm as the narrator portrayed them to be. I believe, I don't know, I simply like have this notion that the main character would have had another reason of killing the old man that wasn't that his eye bothered him, basically. He would have had a more in-depth reason for committing the crime, rather than only for annoyance. Finally, to talk about the Oblong Box, I chose to talk about the narrator. I was going to talk about Wyatt, because I guess his devotion to his wife played a really important role in the development of the story. But you can actually see the change in the mindset of the main character, so I guess it would be far more interesting to cover him than to cover Wyatt. You can see this character is really detective-like, and he treats people in a sense that he is always observant and wants to prove hypotheses he makes about the people, and wants to arrive at correct conclusions of what surrounds him. You can see this when Wyatt introduces himself with the Oblong Box, and when the trip starts to notice that the character is curious about what was the reason behind Wyatt buying an extra room for his family when he actually didn't need one, and what was inside the open box. You see that he starts building this, like, premonitions, to say it that way, about Wyatt and his relation to the open box, basically. Most of all. In the big majority of the story, because it's divided into the narrator trying to guess why was it that Wyatt bought an extra room, the truth behind the open box, and finally the truth revealed. And you can see that the narrator is really curious and takes everything as a small hint and comes to the conclusion that I guess there was a maid staying in the extra room and there was a painting inside the open box. Knowing that Wyatt was a painting, he made those assumptions. And finally, when he talks about Wyatt, about the open box, you get to see how the character starts talking about himself and about the conclusions he has come to, when Wyatt's response is absolutely sick-like. He's absolutely nervous to talk about the open box. And then you get to notice that the character starts, like, wondering if the truth behind the open box was far beyond the painting. And when Wyatt decides to sink with the open box once the ship sinks and die with it. And you see that the captain knew all along the truth, but isn't going to tell you about it unless the family members are not longer around. You get to see that the character starts, like, reflecting on what his conclusions were, on what his methods were, what went wrong, because nobody sinks with a painting. Paintings are way too thin to be sunk with. And once he finally learns the truth, he accepts the fact that he's just a detective wannabe. He wasn't trained for that. He made his mistakes in coming to conclusions because he was too careless about the actual situation. And I think it's really interesting how he treats other people in regards to this, to being almost a detective wannabe, and what the output, to say that way, really was. So that's basically my analysis of these 3 stories from Tales of Mystery and Horror. Peace out.